down if you have a best friend. Now put a finger down if you think your best friend will murder you and stab you over 50 times simply because she decided she doesn't want to be your friend anymore. Unfortunately, that is the true crime case of Skyler Neese. Okay, so boom. Skyler was a 16-year-old girl who actually was an intelligent straight-A student, top of her class. She's what you would call a good girl. She was the only child to her parents, Mary and Dave, and since she was the only child, she was literally their light, pride, and joy. When Skyler was 8 years old, she met her best friend Sheila Eddy at a community church. Sheila was a bit more on the wild side, more of a bad girl type of vibe. Sheila came from a broken home and she was also an only child, so her and Skyler became really close. So close that Sheila could just walk into Skyler's house at any time because they treated her like family. They continued to be best friends throughout the year, and once they got into high school is when they met their third best friend, Rachel Schultz. Rachel was also raised as an only child and came from a religious family, but she lived a rebellious, wild life when she wasn't around her family. Everything was good at first until Skyler started to become the third wheel. Sheila and Rachel would rebel and do things like sneak out and smoke weed, but Skyler wasn't into that because she was more of a good girl. Eventually, Sheila and Rachel stopped inviting Skyler to anything because she was no fun and boring. It was also rumored that at a sleepover, Skyler seen Sheila and Rachel get intimate with each other, and they also didn't want her to spill their secret of them getting intimate with each other, so they were pushing her out for that reason as well. Nonetheless, being left out made Skyler extremely sad. It made her so sad that she vented and said things on Twitter like, "Sick of being at home. Thanks, friends. Love hanging out with you all too. Just know I know. Hope you don't expect me to get any more. Bye." Fast forwarding a little bit, eventually Sheila and Rachel invited Skyler out. But Skyler would have to sneak out to do that. She hesitated at first, but she missed her friends so much and wanted to be back cool and part of the group that she just decided to go. Skyler kissed her parents goodnight, acted like she went to sleep, but snuck out the house. She got into the car with Sheila and Rachel, and they went to a secluded area in the woods where they would usually smoke weed. But instead, it was a setup, and Sheila and Rachel counted to 3. 1, 2, 3. Then they stabbed Skyler over 50 times and murdered her. She tried to run and fight back, but they overpowered her, and they said that her last words were, "Why?" Like for part 2. Stabbing your best friend over 50 times and murdering her because you don't want to be friends with her anymore, part 2. Okay, so boom, like I said, they counted to 3 and murdered their best friend by stabbing her over 50 times because they didn't want to be friends with her anymore. They left her body there and said her last words were, "Why?" After Skyler's parents reported her loss, Sheila had the audacity to act concerned and would go to Skyler's parents' house, cry, and act like she was trying her best to get answers, knowing she was the one who killed their daughter. And while Sheila was acting worried and concerned, she had the audacity to go on Twitter and tweet subliminals like, "Why is my favorite question?" knowing that was Skyler's last words. And she also tweeted, "We really did go on 3. Because on 3 is when they attacked and killed Skyler." Eventually, investigators questioned Rachel and Sheila so heavily because they were caught in so many lies. Rachel eventually broke down and confessed to everything. Both were charged with murder, and Sheila got life and eligible for parole in 15 years, and Rachel got 30 years and is eligible for parole in 10 years. Be careful who you call friends, guys.
Time. Okay, so this one day I was hanging out with my boyfriend and we were chilling at my house. While we were there, we were just relaxing when all of a sudden we heard a really loud bang at the door. One thing I have to mention is that he had this crazy ex-girlfriend who he literally just broke up with. And of course, his ex-girlfriend was still in love with him. A few seconds later, we heard another bang at the door. So this time my boyfriend went to go check the door to see if there was something or someone there. He went to go check, but there was nothing. A little while later, it was already past 1 in the morning, so my boyfriend ended up going back to his house. And my parents were out of town this night, so I was home all alone. As I was getting ready for bed, I heard the glass breaking downstairs. So I ran downstairs to see his crazy ex-girlfriend who broke my window with a brick and is now inside my house. That's when I also noticed that she had a knife in her hand. She then said, "If you don't break up with him in an hour, you will be dead." I ran back upstairs to my room and I locked the door and I called the police. She was still inside my house when she heard the police sirens, and that's when she ran outside. 5 days later, she was found in the woods in a cabin, and to this day she's still in jail. She will stay there for 7 years for stalking, threatening, and attempted murder. A good thing to come out of this story though is that me and my boyfriend never broke up, and we are actually still together to this day, and today is our 6-year anniversary.
Am I wrong for calling my friend irresponsible for what she did while babysitting my child? I, female 29, have a phobia of horses. Phobias are irrational fears, and I don't think my fear is irrational, but everyone else in my life keeps calling it a phobia. I do like animals, but horses are just not it for me. When I was around 8 years old, a horse attacked me unprovoked and nearly killed me, and I was hospitalized. My best friend Eliza, female 29, is the opposite of me. When we were in high school, she was your stereotypical horse girl. She owns some horses of her own now and is still obsessed with horses. I don't interact with Eliza's horses and never have. I respect that we can have our own interests and Eliza and I can have different things to talk about. I have a daughter, Tanya, who's 4, and Eliza occasionally kindly volunteers to babysit for me. Eliza has her own daughter of a similar age and they play together nicely. Last week, I asked Eliza to babysit for me so me and my partner could go to my cousin's child-free wedding, and she agreed. I paid Eliza to babysit and gave her some extra money to get herself and the girls takeout. Well, when after I picked Tanya up and was driving home, Tanya was telling me about how she sat on a horsey. At first, I thought that Tanya was talking about a toy rocking horsey, but then she told me how she fed the horsey some apples. When I got home, I called Eliza and asked if she had my daughter interact with the horses. At first, Eliza denied everything and said that she didn't know what I was talking about. But when I said that Tanya told me about it, Eliza admitted that she held Tanya while she sat on one of her horses and let Tanya help feed one of her horses. She went on and on about how safe it was and that she was in complete control of the situation, that the horse was standing completely still when she held Tanya on the horse's back. I told Eliza that what she did was irresponsible and doing it behind my back was unacceptable. I was so angry and uncomfortable. She said that I'm overreacting because of my phobia and said that Tanya was completely safe and how she knows so much about horses. I said that I didn't care and that she should think about what she did. My family thinks that I overreacted and that I should apologize to Eliza, that I'm projecting my phobia onto my daughter. So, am I in the wrong here?
Am I wrong for telling my always late friends an earlier time so that we'd actually be on time? So I, 32 female, have been friends with this group of people, 30, 31, and 32 female, since high school. I love them all to death, but Jesus Christ, on a cruise ship when we plan something, they are always consecutively late. Every single time, and it drives me nuts. One year, they almost made us miss our flight home, and they always say that they forgot the time or thought they had more and just goofed around. It has got to the point where I will meet them because I refuse to get caught up in the drama. Last year, I left on my own accord to the airport because they were all passed out and would not wake up. They missed checkout and had to pay for an extra day. Then they barely made it to the airport in time for their flights. Apparently, I'm pushy for ensuring we leave at a certain time, considering traffic, possible accidents, or delays, and even looking up shortcuts in case. Throughout the year, sharing a ride with them has almost made me late to work before. Lesson learned, so now I take an extra day off just in case. Our vacations themselves are fun and easygoing. So this vacation was pretty smooth up until the end. We all decided to choose a night where we would plan all the events. Mine was Friday. It was a fairly relaxing day. I scheduled a pedicure for 9:30 a.m. and I told them it was at 8:45. They showed up at 9:15 and were surprised we got in so quickly. I reserved a table for us for lunch at 1 p.m. and I told them it was at 12:30. They arrived at 12:52 with the same reaction. That night, I had reserved us a table at this really nice dining establishment for 7:30 and I told them 6:45. They arrived at 7:10 and it was a great night. Sunday, when we were going home, I said my goodbyes, checked out of the hotel room, and took my separate Uber to the airport for my 2 p.m. flight home. I got home around 8 and turned on my phone to the equivalent to an assault on my group chat. Apparently, they had left late again and one of them missed their flight and they were all arguing about it. I told my roomie what was going on and what I did, and she said that was rude of me to manipulate their time like that. She knows one of the girls and told her what I did, and now all of the girls are mad at me. My Friday scheduling had absolutely nothing to do with one missing their flight.